At this stage in the pinch pot process, we're going to be working to continue shaping and smoothing your form. Using a variety of ribs would be the best tool for smoothing. The rib that I have here is a flexible rubber rib. We'll start though with the aluminum rib with teeth, and what this is going to do is it's going to be scratching the surface of the clay to eliminate the bumps. So it's going to be scraping away the raised areas and then filling in the recessed areas from the pinching. The key here with this is that whenever you're applying pressure to one side of your pinch pot, you'll need to support it from the other side. That way you can apply a decent amount of pressure and really move that clay around, but also you're still keeping your pinch pot in its original shape. You're not stretching it out anymore. Once you have scratched, you'll then flip the rib and use the flat side and give it a little bend. Again, holding the inside, you're doing long continuous pulls, and that rib is being held at about a 45-degree angle facing the pinch pot. Keep cleaning off the rib as you go. It will get a little bit of a buildup as it's scraping the surface. Working on the inside of the bowl now, again using the teeth, you're going to be dragging those teeth along the interior, cupping the outside of the bowl, trying to help retain the shape that you have. Another nice thing about using the ribs and shaping is it's shaping the bowl. It can help you get, especially the rim, to be more round. Now use the rib with the smooth edges, no teeth. Now at this step you'll find it's a little bit tricky to get the interior bottom to be smooth. And I intentionally was being a little bit too quick with the movements, and I have some really obvious edges there where it cut into the walls. So really the best option for me is just smoothing with my finger, and then also you can go in there with a sponge. Make sure you're checking in with your reference image and comparing. It is helpful too to hold them side by side like I am, or if you have the image on a screen, just holding your pinch pot up next to that and scanning back and forth. So at this stage, I'm ready to start doing some more shaping, and you can see I started a little bit prior to recording this part, but there are a lot of ways you can go about getting the shape that you want. Here I'm going to be working with the narrow end of the rubber rib, and I'm pushing inwards to create that waist, and again holding the inside of the bowl. Notice how the banding wheel really comes in handy again with this. I'm actually pushing the bowl forward as I'm pulling the rib back towards myself. Another good tool to use when shaping is using a paddle tool, which is what I have here. And it's basically tapping in portions of the bowl, again, supporting from the inside. Make sure you're checking your bowl at eye level, as many different angles as you possibly can to ensure symmetry, and you're still working towards the shape of your tea bowl. You might find that using a hair dryer for a few minutes would be helpful. If you are seeing that the bowl is still really flexible, just make sure you're applying heat only towards the bottom. You're not putting any heat on the rim. At this point, I'm ready to make my foot. And I'm starting out with making a coil, which for most of you, that will be how you're creating your foot. To make a coil, start with a small amount of clay. You really won't need a lot for this foot. And you pinch it into a sausage shape and then start rolling. Make sure you have enough space to roll. So you have, at least a foot movement forward and backwards. Keep moving your hands back and forth. Fingers are spread outwards. Don't apply too much pressure. So your hands are just lightly resting on the clay, and the movement, so it's rolling forward and backward, is really what's stretching it out. Once you have rolled a decent coil, you want to check to see if you have enough length, and also looking at the thickness. So I'm ending up making mine a little bit thinner, and then I want to flatten it out, because the style of my foot isn't rounded. It has more of a flat edge to it. So I'm using the flat edge of the rib and then just kind of gently tapping down the other two corners to give me more of like a boxy coil. Again, here we're just kind of figuring out the amount of clay that we need, depending on how long your coil is will determine the width or the size of the foot. Take a knife, and you're going to cut through your coil at an angle, so a 45-degree angle through both pieces, and do it in the middle, so not at the end of the coil, but kind of where they overlap. Now you'll see here that I actually have one end of that coil is thicker than the other end, so I'm going to take a minute just to thin that out a bit so it's more consistent. And now they match up really well. Make sure your placement is exactly where you want it. This step will take a considerable amount of time, checking to make sure it's centered. You don't want it lopsided. Now, from here, the step that you're not seeing is the scoring and adding slip. So I scored both my pinch pot and the foot ring, added slip, and then made the attachment. So here, I now have to weld the foot onto my pinch pot by using a variety of different movements. I'm using a wooden modeling tool here, gently spreading the clay down. I'm not trying to overwork it. I want the seam between the foot and the bowl to be seamless, or to appear to be as one. Any visible gaps or openings will cause the foot to crack or fall completely off. In this last step, it's really helpful if you have something flat like a small book or a binder, just to make sure that your foot is level. So by holding that up and you looking at it at eye level, if you see the book leaning one way or the other, that's showing you need to make some adjustments with how your foot is placed. After this point, you should be keeping your pinch pot upside down until the foot dries enough so that it can support the weight of your pinch pot. And then from here, we're just doing some finishing touches. I'm going to be touching up and refining the rim. So I'm going over the top portion where the rim is with a rib tool. And then finally, I have the use of a rasp. So there are a variety of different rasp tools. They're like cheese graters. And the key with this is you're using the banding wheel again, and you need to be looking at your pinch pot at eye level as you do this. And you're looking for any areas that are raised, and you're shaving down those raised areas. But as you do this, the rasp is going to be traveling the whole way across, and it's going to catch the areas that are a little bit higher, and we'll start to shave those down. So you might end up with a decent pile of clay shavings when you're done, which is a good thing. You can also use this on the outside. So right now I'm using this on the exterior so I can get that rim all the same thickness. I don't want thin areas and thick areas as far as how thick the rim is. And then because the rasp has teeth and it leaves scratches, you'll need to go back over and compress and smooth those out. So I'm using the rib again to smooth out those areas. And there you can see the rim. It's close to being done. Just doing a little bit more smoothing. Getting all of those scratch marks out. And then finally just using your finger to do some more smoothing. You can kind of round out those corners a bit. Also using a sponge with a little bit of water on is really helpful.